Hi, I'm Mary, a librarian and book reviewer with a focus on stories written for kids, tweens, and teens. Today, I am joined by Nathalie Laine, who lives a safe distance away from the ocean in Paris, France. She enjoys poking her finger into the mini whirlpools that form above bath drains, randomly understanding words in a language she doesn't know, wrongly guessing the double agent in Cold War spy stories, and getting spurned by grumpy cats. She may have snuck some of this into her Alessia in Atlantis stories. Welcome, Nathalie. It's so nice to have you.
Hi, thank you. Thank you. It's so nice to be here with you.
Can you tell us a little bit about Alessia and her series?
Sure. So, Alessia and Atlantis is a series I started sorry, I'm being attacked. Alessia and Atlantis is a series I started writing about 8 years ago. That's all about diving into magical oceans, solving mysteries, and discovering your strength along the way. So the latest book, the newest one that I've just released last month. Um, or I don't know exactly when this is going to air, but I've just recently released, is this one, The Aquamarine Prophecy, which is the third adventure in the series. And to give you an idea, so this time, Alessia, who's a 13-year-old girl, she has to solve a centuries-old riddle before her own mother can use a dark prophecy to take over Atlantis. And along the way, she'll be racing through Bermuda Triangle shipwrecks, outsmarting mermaids and coral pixies, facing rampaging sea monsters. But yeah, so it's all very exciting adventure stuff. And then the toughest battle she'll have to face inside this one is inside herself against this dangerous magic, tempting her to use the prophecy's power for herself. So it's basically a series of books full of adventure, twists, underwater wonder, and usually like really enjoyed by readers who liked series like Percy Jackson or Keeper of the Lost Cities, those kinds of adventure series, Nevermore, things like that.
What inspired you to write Alessia's stories?
So it's funny, actually, it started with somebody random at a party told me something like, we know less about the sea floor than we know about space or about the solar system. Like we've explored the ocean floor less than we've explored kind of the solar system with all our photography and everything. Um, which kind of blew my mind because, the ocean covers 70% of the surface of our planet, and the thought that we have this huge area of our own planet that we don't know much about. Then immediately I started thinking, well, we have no idea. There could be whole like magical worlds under the sea, something like that's just kind of happening in parallel and that we don't even know about. And so then I fell kind of into a rabbit hole of looking at underwater mythology, um, and like the myth of Atlantis, sort of this city that was this like mythological city that supposedly had a super advanced ancient civilization and was sunk and now continues to exist under the ocean. And what was fascinating is I found that basically every ancient civilization around the world has their own version of kind of an Atlantis myth. Like in the Indian Ocean, there's supposedly Lemuria, which is kind of Indian Atlantis. There's in Chinese mythology, there's Penglai. In the Baltics, there's Vignetta. Like every kind of there's so many different myths that all have a similar story of a kind of an underwater city or continent that exists. And they all have the most like fabulous mythological creatures, like much beyond just mermaids. I mean, we tend to immediately think mermaids, but millions of some, a lot of which have made it into my book. Like in the Scottish mythology, they have the blue men of Minch, like these giant blue men that live under the ocean. In, I think, Polish mythology, they had sea bishops, which are just these fabulous creatures with cone heads, with like long veils made of fish scales and tentacle fingers and stuff. And so the more I discovered about all these myths and legends, the more I was excited about, okay, creating an underwater world which would have all these countries and continents and cultures and creatures and sort of be as rich or even richer than our world that we live in. And so then, and at the time I've always enjoyed a lot kind of middle grade fantasy stories, I guess, like Narnia or Harry Potter, Percy Jackson, or all of these kind of things. So then, very quickly, the characters started coming to mind that were kind of middle grade characters, like Alessia, and she would be going to a school there, and she would have a group of friends, like a found family, and all of these things, and kind of a mystery, adventure, plot twists. So then, everything kind of spiraled out from there.
I think that's so cool. And that's like you said, there's all sorts of mythology that's already woven into a lot of middle grade literature, but not a lot that's been done with this underwater world. So I
Yeah,
think it's cool that you have woven that into your stories.
yeah.
Do
Awesome. No,
you
yeah,
feel
I felt like I didn't see it much. So
do you feel like your stories are best suited to that middle grade 8 to 12 age range, or would you say that more a wider range of ages might appreciate them?
So I think it's definitely upper middle grade. Like I'd say maybe it could go a little bit into like lower YA, kind of maybe more like 9 or 10 to 13, 14 than really like 8 to 12. Because I know that like I've had feedback from some readers that are a little bit older and still enjoyed it. So I think that it does stretch, there's this upper middle grade area that is kind of it's difficult to define because tweens are at such different places at that age. Like some are really still kind of like into chapter books and into kind of the more like yeah, light fantasy kind of books. Some are already reading a lot of YA, so it's kind of hard to define. But I'd say, yeah, around that age. And then, of course, like adults like me that read loads of middle grade that are, if you're still a child at heart, or like you as well, I guess. Then of course, I think I've had a good number of adults also saying that they really enjoyed it and they couldn't guess the twists and they got sucked into the story and stuff. So I think it could also appeal to the right type of adults.
That's awesome. Yeah, middle grade, there's so much you can do with it. And
Yeah,
I agree that as an adult, I like to settle into that sometimes too.
yeah, yeah.
What made you decide to become a writer?
Um, so I think I always wanted to write. Like I found, I remember when I was probably 6 or 7 years old, my first dream was to be a writer. And I even found recently all of these kind of like printed little books that I had made, like storybooks that would just like staple together pages. And okay, they weren't the best written stories in the world. Like the characters were all like beautiful and intelligent and fun, and everyone loved them and popular, and everything is great with them. And then there's someone so evil, and so they. But I think I always kind of dreamed of being a writer at the time. Um, and then I think as I grew up, it started to feel I was always kind of making up stories, even when I was just by myself at home. As a teen, I would like talk to myself because I was acting out stories, making up stories, and I was kind of embarrassed about it. I was like, I hope nobody ever catches me in my room, like talking to myself and acting out all these characters. But I don't think I ever really considered, as I grew up, doing it as a job because it seemed like such a dream and not something that you can really do, and you need to have a more realistic job or something like that. So then I went and I studied business and I did something completely different for a while. And then I think as I started working in this big company in marketing where I was working, one of my colleagues mentioned randomly that like he was writing a book in the evenings. And then for the first time, it sort of like struck me like, oh, wait, that was kind of my lifelong dream. I could totally do that as well. It's crazy that I hadn't thought about it until I had this example of someone else, but I was like, yeah, there's no reason that I can't have my day job and then write afterwards. And so that's when, and this kind of coincided with the time that this random person told me about the sea and space, and I got into reading all these myths, and I was reading loads of middle grade books and stuff. So everything kind of came together at once, and that's when I kind of decided to properly start writing.
That's awesome. So is it your actual day job now, writing, or do you also have a day job separately?
So now we're like a year ago, so I'd worked for this like big company where I was marketing director for 14 years. And then a year ago, I kind of took the leap. I realized that I'd saved enough money, and I really wanted to have more time to dedicate. I'd already released two of the Alessia and Atlantis books, but I hadn't yet released the third. I was still writing it. Um, and I had plenty of other book ideas and lots of like even book marketing ideas that I wanted to try out, and I didn't really have that much time for. And so I kind of figured, okay, I've saved enough money now. What I could try and do is do the parts of my day job that I loved the most. And what I loved was coaching people and giving trainings in marketing and kind of teaching marketing and things like this. Um, so I could do that freelance, like give marketing and leadership trainings freelance, which is anyway the part of my job I loved. And then that would give me a much more flexible schedule and much more time to be able to dedicate to trying and experimenting, different marketing things around my book or even writing more books and things like this. So for the last kind of year and 2 months, that's what I've been doing, which yeah, does make it much easier to have that flexibility of time. It's harder in some ways because having a day job also gives you a very regular routine, and it's easy then to stick a writing routine together with your routine. Whereas if everything is up in the air all the time, you're always in this sort of nebulous haze of, okay, well, what should I do now? Should I write now, or should I work on this, or should I work on that? But I mean, in other ways, it's been wonderful just to have the time to do some of the things that I never really had time to do, to go to bookstores, to go and speak in schools or things like this. So that's been really cool.
That's great. And since you live in Paris, do you market your book in French as well as English?
So this is one of the things that I'm working on. So this is one of the things that I really wanted to work on and didn't have time for because so I speak fluent French. My mother's French. Um, and I really wanted to do the translations into French and start marketing it in France as well. I started doing, I think I got through half of the first book. Um, and it was so much harder than I thought. Even speaking the language fluently, but translating is really kind of a job and a skill. And finding, the English language in many ways is much more, I think, flexible than the French language. Like you can make up words much easier, or turn nouns into verbs, or like things like this, or use like onomatopoeia and things, which isn't that easy in French. So then trying to looking at this English sentence and being like, oh my goodness, how am I going to get the same effect in French where all the grammar rules need to be kind of respected and, and things like this. It's really hard. So I got through half of the first book. And then I put it aside for a while because I realized this was going to be much more time consuming than I thought. And I really wanted to finish the third book in English and get started on some other projects, like for, another book idea that I had, and even some more marketing projects. And then hopefully I'll find the time to finish the French translations, or find somebody that could help me with the translations as well, at some point down the road.
Well, that would certainly be fun, especially to be able to market them into schools in your community, in addition to the others that you visited.
Exactly, exactly. Because now it's like now I have there are some great English bookstores in Paris, like very old ones, kind of historic English bookstores in really iconic places, that are cool, and it's some really cool international schools and things. And then I go to London as well from time to time. But it would be great just to see it in the little bookstore down my street in French as well. That would be super cool.
Yeah. And I know that you've won some awards also for these books. How has that been for you? What has that process been like?
Yeah, that's so the honestly I kind of for the first book I didn't really know what to do. I knew I wanted to try and make this book launch kind of as big as possible. Um and so I really tried everything and anything that was out there. I definitely spread myself too thin and like was super overworked and spent a lot of money like applying to get trade reviews, applying to awards, running promotions, running ads, doing kind of all sorts of sending the book to influencers and things like this. And I was just sort of throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks, which was brilliant. And it was great because then I actually got quite a good readership with the first book. So I was really happy with like how well the first book did and like the buzz that happened online at the time. And I had some great kind of like booktuber reviews and bookstagrammers, and even a lot of people reached out. So I made some author friends and some reader friends and things like this along the way, which is great. Um, but it was a really tiring process doing all of that, like applying to all those awards, applying to to get the trade reviews, applying to all of the things. So I'm glad that it panned out and I got the Mum's Choice Gold Award for the book and I got some great trade reviews and I was like an editor's pick on Book Life magazine and I got a good Kyrgyz review and all of these things. Um, but it was exhausting and financially draining as well. So when I got to the next two books, I was like, okay, I need to find a way to better manage my resources, my own energy, and then my money as well, and pick just a few things that I'm going to keep doing for the following books, but not go quite so crazy with the marketing plan.
That makes sense. You can really dive down that rabbit hole easily.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right, from there.
There are so many things that you can do.
Absolutely. What is it that you hope readers come away with after engaging with Alessia's stories?
Um, it's a good question. I think one of the reasons, or like one of the inspirations I had when writing Alessia was maybe an experience I had myself growing up. Like I was always kind of a very sensitive child, quite, I'd say quite empathetic, quite emotional, and uh, maybe lacking in confidence a little bit, maybe a little shy and things like this, very introspective. And growing up, I always saw all of those things as like weaknesses. Like I was kind of ashamed to be that way and wished I could be more confident or more tough or things like this. And actually, as I entered the business world, um, and and overall, with as time passed and I grew up and I had different, friendships and relationships and experiences, I kind of started realizing that all of those things that I thought were weaknesses were strengths. Like this was actually being empathetic, being vulnerable, being sensitive. That is a style of leadership, even in a corporate business environment, that can be hugely successful. It's not the type of leader that you typically see on TV, where you see kind of these very tough, kind of no nonsense and a bit harsh, guys usually. Um, but in reality, in the real world, like being empathetic and making kind of deeper connections with your friends because they see how sensitive you are and they appreciate that. Um, and being kind of aware of your emotions and in touch with them and stuff. All of those things are huge strengths and make you actually a very strong leader that people kind of rally behind and want to support and feel energized by. And so overall, I think that experience was very inspiring for me, and I wanted to write a character that would discover that and see that being empathetic or being sensitive can be a superpower essentially, and that's what happens with Alessia. Is she has this empath power that turns out to be kind of her superpower. So if I could leave that kind of message behind with readers, that if there are any other readers who are feeling a bit like down on themselves because they're oversensitive or they're too insecure, they're, too neurotic or whatever, and they can see that, oh, the ways in which that can actually be a strength to them, I think that would be great. And then overall, I just wanted, I mean, I remember, I think the books that I read when I was a tween, like in middle grade age, are probably the ones that I most fell in love with and felt completely immersed in. Like I remember kind of reading at all hours of the night, like devouring books in just a few days and getting so into the world and even dreaming about them and waking up and realizing, oh wait, those characters aren't actually my friend. That was a dream, but I was so into it that I was sure they were real people and they were my real friends. Like, so if I could create also just that kind of very fun, immersive experience for someone else, that I mean, that's already hugely gratifying. And I'm really grateful that if I've already had some like young readers reach back and tell me that that was the case for them, that they devoured the books and they got so into them and they like couldn't wait to see what happens next and they got so into some of the characters. And just that is a wonderful experience in itself, like even without any learning lessons or whatever, but just to think that someone really kind of can enjoy the story like that.
And that's so nice that they told you. Not everybody will reach out and say things like that, so it's nice to hear from readers.
Exactly. Exactly. It was really a super nice surprise that they reached out.
Oh, what advice would you give to anyone who's thinking about writing or bringing a story into the world, especially if they are like you were, working a full-time day job and feeling like they might not have a lot of time for that?
Yeah. Um, I think on this one, the my key piece of advice would be to find a way to romanticize the process and routine for yourself. Um, because what I've learned writing these books is there's a lot of work before the rewarding parts. Like I think with the image I had of what it would be writing a book was very different from the reality. Like I kind of had this image that you sit down and you're inspired by the muse and you have great ideas and it all flows out of you and in a few days you've written a book and it was kind of effortless because you were just so inspired and then in a few weeks it gets published and then you start reading reviews and stuff like this. And it wasn't like that at all. Like it's a very, it's grueling sometimes. Like it's not always, there are moments of inspiration, there are moments of this like flow state where it's enjoyable. There are moments where you get good news, where you get a good review, or you get an award, or you get sales or something, and you get tangible results. But those are just few and far between. And in the meantime, to get the book done, there's this grueling process of every single day or like, whatever frequency you want to write, even when you don't feel like it, going to your computer and forcing the words out, even when sometimes they really don't want to come out and it feels like trudging through mud, kind of. So I think it's really important that you find a way to make that process enjoyable for yourself because you're going to be spending hours and they're not going to be naturally enjoyable. So, to get the resilience and the consistency to keep coming back, and keep writing and get the book done, the process needs to be exciting. So I started doing like I would wake up early. I'd wake up at like, yeah, 5:45 and I had a whole kind of ritual. Like I would make myself a special coffee that I only make for when I'm writing. like this sort of like hazelnut cappuccino kind of thing that I'd make at home. I had my special candles that smelled super nice that I only used when I was writing. I have a special playlist. And I had a really like nice, cozy kind of environment by my desk and stuff. And just that ritual made it fun enough that it was nice. Like I would hear my alarm at 5:45, and even if it's cold and dark outside and I feel tired and I know that I have a whole day of work after that, I'd be like, ah, but that's gonna be nice though, having that coffee and being all cozy and having the candle and stuff. And then being there sitting with my music and candle and coffee, and it just it made the process feel nice as well. So even if it was a day where the words weren't coming, at least it was like an enjoyable kind of me time. And I think you, yeah, you kind of need to find your version of that to have the wherewithal to keep showing up and keep putting in the work. Um, because that's actually what makes the difference, not like having the most original idea or having the most inspiration. So yeah, I think that would be my main piece of advice.
That's really helpful to hear. I think that there are some sunshine and roses moments when you're writing, but a lot of it
Yeah,
is just that dedication to getting it done.
exactly, exactly.
Well, Nathalie, I've asked you a lot of questions today, but what is the question that I didn't ask you that you wished I had?
Um, I think so one thing I would say is again something that I kind of discovered becoming a writer, which I had no idea when I was a reader. It's like what is the kind of what are the best ways that you can support an author? Like if you like an author, you like their book, um, what can you do to really help them apart from, okay, you bought their book, so that was already supportive, or like you read it in the library, but what else can you do? Um, and the answer that I would have is leaving reviews. And this is something that I had no idea when I was a reader. Like, I don't think I'd ever left a single review for any book in my life, even though some books completely changed my life and inspired me and changed my perspective and everything. But I think it just never occurred to me to go and leave a review for that book, like on Amazon or on any kind of online bookstore, or even like or on blogs or wherever, on Goodreads or something. But actually, now being an author, that makes a huge difference when people take the time to leave a review, even if it's like a one sentence review, even if it's just like, oh, great, enjoyed this book, or just a star rating and a one word or something. Or even if it's a review that's while the reading is in progress, like I've not yet finished it, but I'm halfway through. So far, it's pretty good. Let's see, or something. But anything really helps. Like it really helps because I think the algorithms then of these online bookstores recommend your book more when they see that it has more reviews. And then it also helps other readers when they land on your book page. If they see that there's been a lot of reviews, it's reassuring to them that, okay, this is a real book. It's not just like an author that got their mother to submit a review. And they can read through the reviews and also figure out if this book is the right fit for them. Like if they see, okay, someone hate, even if it's a bad review, someone hated this book and they hated this book because it talks about mermaids. Well, actually, I love mermaids, so probably I'll like this book. So I think any review, good or bad, is just good to leave. It's like kind of good engagement. And I think that's the main thing that I didn't know about before, and now I know and just want to spread the word as much as possible about like this is the way that you can best help and like support authors. It's not like doing anything else extraordinary, but just leaving reviews um is already amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's absolutely true. And the more that people can see how others have reacted to your book, the more they'll be inclined to look at them. So,
Exactly, exactly.
yeah. So, where can folks go to find out more about the Alessia and Atlantis series and maybe other projects that you're working on?
Yeah, sure. So the Alessia and Atlantis series is available on all online bookstores. So, the usual suspects, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Walmart, Waterstones for the UK, like all kind of normal bookstores online. And then, if you want to find out more about me and my writing projects and writing tips like I shared today, or fun facts about sea creatures or sea mythology, since I fell like deep into that rabbit hole. So I know a lot of weird ocean facts. The best way would be to join my newsletter. So I send kind of a newsletter once a month or once a month and a half about. So not that often. It's not going to be kind of spamming your mailbox, but usually I share, yeah, some fun updates, fun pictures of my cat Cricket as well. And that you can find the way to sign up on the mailing list on my website, which is natalielaine.com. So.
Perfect. Perfect. And listeners, if the Alessia and Atlantis series sounds like a great fit for you, I hope you look for it wherever you get your books. And thank you again, Nathalie, for joining me today. It's been a pleasure getting to talk with you.
Thank you so much, Mary, for having me.